Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this loud and clear right from the start. If you think he's over you, I want you to slow down for just a second, because most of the time you are wrong. See, men have a unique way of dealing with emotions. We don't process them the way women do. We don't talk them out. We don't cry them out. We pack them up, shove them somewhere deep, and hope they stay quiet. But feelings don't work like that. Men don't detach emotionally as fast as they pretend, and this is one of the biggest misunderstandings in relationships. A man can look calm on the outside, go quiet, even act like he has moved on, but that doesn't mean his emotions packed up and left with him. What most people don't realize is that men are taught from a very young age to hide what they feel. We are taught to be strong, to not talk too much, to not sit in our emotions. So when something ends, a man's first reaction is not to process it, it's to suppress it. When a woman is hurt, she often feels it immediately. She cries, she talks, she reflects. A man does the opposite. He distracts himself. He works longer hours, scrolls more, jokes more, goes out more. From the outside, it looks like freedom. From the inside, it's avoidance. He tells himself he's fine because admitting he's not would mean facing loss, regret, and vulnerability. And for many men, that's uncomfortable territory. Here's the truth: emotional detachment for men is delayed. While you're healing, he's escaping. While you're accepting reality, he's pretending nothing touched him. But emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They wait. They sit quietly until the noise dies down, and that's usually when it hits him late at night, during a quiet drive, or in moments when he has no distraction left. Men also attach emotionally through consistency, not conversation. The routines, the presence, the feeling of being understood without explaining everything, that's what builds attachment. So when that suddenly disappears, his system doesn't immediately register it as loss. It feels like a break, not an ending. It takes time for the absence to become real. And when it does, it lands heavy. Another thing people miss is that men don't grieve publicly. They grieve privately. A man can go weeks or months acting unaffected, but internally replaying moments, questioning decisions, and wondering if he handled things the wrong way. That emotional replay doesn't mean he wants to admit anything. It just means the connection mattered more than he let on. Pretending is easier than processing. Acting unbothered is safer than admitting pain. And that's why men appear detached long before they actually are. The mask comes off slowly, usually when no one is watching. So when you see a man smiling and moving forward quickly, don't confuse speed with healing. Most of the time, it's just denial wearing confidence. Emotional detachment for men isn't instant. It's gradual, messy, and often unfinished. And by the time he realizes what he's truly lost, the world already thinks he's over it, when in reality, he's just beginning to feel it. Silence from a man often means internal struggle, not indifference. And understanding this is key to realizing what's really going on in his heart. Many people assume that if a man stops calling, texting, or showing up, it means he doesn't care anymore. That assumption could not be further from the truth. Men often process emotions differently than women. Instead of talking about feelings or expressing them openly, we internalize. We fight battles in our own minds, replay conversations, analyze mistakes, and weigh every possible outcome before making a move. So silence is rarely a sign that a man has forgotten or moved on. It's usually a sign that he's fighting with himself. When a man goes quiet, it doesn't mean he doesn't think about you. In fact, it often means the opposite. His mind is busy with memories, questions, and doubts. He's remembering moments you shared, analyzing what went wrong, and wondering if he could have done things differently. But instead of calling or texting, he retreats inward. Pride, fear of rejection, or simply not knowing what to say can keep him silent. So while you might interpret his quietness as detachment, it's often the sign of an emotional storm raging beneath the surface. Men also struggle with vulnerability. For many, admitting feelings is difficult. Saying, "I miss you," or "I was wrong," makes them feel exposed, weak, or out of control. Silence becomes a protective mechanism, a way to keep emotions in check until they figure out how to handle them. During this period, he may seem distant, distracted, or even uninterested, but that's just the exterior. Internally, he is consumed with thoughts of you, replaying memories, and feeling the absence of your presence more than he will ever admit. Another reason silence can signal emotional struggle is fear. Men fear rejection, fear being misunderstood, and fear that expressing themselves will make things worse. So instead of risking conflict or rejection, they withdraw. They stay quiet, hoping time will clarify their feelings, hoping they will find the right words, and secretly wishing things could be different. That quiet, that distance, it's not indifference, it's hesitation, it's contemplation, and it's longing that hasn't yet found a safe outlet. It's also important to understand that men often need time to process independently. While women are more likely to talk through emotions, men usually need space to understand theirs. Silence is part of that process. He's not ignoring you. He's not over it. He's just trying to make sense of feelings that he can't yet articulate. And during this time, his mind is rarely calm. It's filled with what ifs, regrets, and reflections on what you both shared. So the next time you see a man going quiet, don't immediately assume he's over you or that he doesn't care. More often than not, his silence is the loudest proof that he's struggling with his emotions, battling feelings he can't yet express, and trying to find a way to reconcile his heart with his mind. What looks like absence is actually engagement, just internal and invisible to the world. Ego keeps men from expressing what they still feel. And this is one of the biggest reasons women misread a man's emotions. Many times a man is hurting or missing someone deeply, but he will never openly show it. Why? Because pride, social conditioning, and fear of appearing weak all get in the way. A man's ego tells him that showing longing, vulnerability, or regret makes him less of a man. It tells him to hold back, to pretend he's fine, to act like nothing affects him. And because of that, what you see on the outside, the calm, the distance, the indifference, is often the exact opposite of what's happening on the inside. Inside, there's struggle, emotion, and reflection, but the ego builds a wall to hide it from the world and sometimes even from himself. Men often confuse emotional expression with weakness, saying, "I miss you," or "I was wrong," doesn't come naturally because it requires admitting to feelings that the ego doesn't want to acknowledge. Pride can make a man stay silent even when he longs to speak, even when every part of him wants to reach out. And the longer he holds back, the more he convinces himself that silence is strength. But in reality, it's fear disguised as composure. He fears rejection, he fears judgment, and he fears losing control. So ego becomes the shield that keeps him from acting on feelings that are still very real. Ego also prevents a man from confronting the vulnerability that comes with emotional honesty. When a man loves, he wants to protect himself from pain. That's why even when he's thinking about someone constantly, he might never say a word. He'll test situations, watch from a distance, and analyze every little thing you do without showing any of it. It's not that he doesn't feel, it's that he's afraid to risk being exposed. The ego whispers, "Don't admit it, don't reach out, don't let her see you like this." And so he buries his emotions beneath a layer of pride. What many people don't realize is that ego can actually prolong a man's attachment. The more he holds back, the more he obsesses quietly. He keeps thinking about what he lost, what he could have done differently, and what he still wants. Silence, withdrawal, and distance aren't signs that he's over it. They're signs that ego is forcing him to wrestle with feelings privately. He is emotionally engaged, but the ego insists he remain untouchable, untethered, and unacknowledged. And here's the thing, this isn't a permanent wall. Ego may hide feelings for a while, but it rarely destroys them. Over time, if the connection mattered, the feelings find a way to surface. The man may finally reach out, express what he couldn't say before, or take actions that reveal the depth of his emotion. But it only happens when ego steps aside or when he can no longer ignore the intensity of his own feelings. So when a man is distant, cold, or silent, don't confuse it with lack of care. In many cases, the ego is controlling his actions, not his heart. Behind that quiet, there's thought, longing, and emotion that he may never voice, but that doesn't make it any less real. It's just the ego's way of protecting him while he sorts out the storm inside. Men revisit connections when they lose access, not when they have it, and this is something women often overlook. When a man has someone in his life consistently, when he sees her, talks to her, and feels her presence, he can take that connection for granted, sometimes without even realizing it. Men are wired differently when it comes to attachment and appreciation. Familiarity can create comfort, and comfort can make a man complacent. It's not that he doesn't care, but he doesn't feel the urgency to act because he assumes the connection will always be there. It's only when that access is gone, when the distance is real and the presence disappears, that he begins to notice the depth of his feelings. Absence reveals value in a way presence often cannot. When a man loses access to someone he cared about, he starts replaying memories, small moments, and conversations in his mind. He begins to notice the little things he didn't appreciate before, the way she laughed, the way she understood him without words, the comfort she brought just by being there. That sudden absence awakens emotions he may have buried under routine, distraction, or ego while she was still close. Loss forces reflection, and reflection forces realization. Only when the connection is no longer immediate does he see what he actually had, and it's often more intense than he expected. Men also tend to test themselves in absence. Once the access is gone, he starts to question his own decisions. He wonders if he acted too casually, if he took her for granted, or if he pushed too hard and scared her away. This internal questioning can be confusing and painful, but it's necessary for him to confront his emotions. Men don't always process feelings in real time, and sometimes it takes a break in connection for the truth to sink in. The heart starts sending signals he may have ignored before, and the mind begins to analyze how to regain what was lost, or at least understand why it happened. Another factor is desire for control and timing. Men don't always express feelings the moment they arise because they want to make sure the timing is right, or because they need to feel in control of how to approach the situation. When the connection was constantly available, there was no sense of urgency. Distance creates that urgency, forcing the heart to speak even when the ego hesitates. The realization hits, if I don't act, I might lose her forever. This sudden awareness can trigger longing, vulnerability, and eventual attempts to reconnect. It's also important to understand that when a man revisits a lost connection, it doesn't necessarily mean he was inattentive before. It often means he didn't fully comprehend the depth of bond until it was no longer accessible. The human mind tends to value what is scarce. Emotional access is no different. When a man can't reach you when he feels your absence, he starts to measure what you truly meant to him and what he may have risked losing. So, if you think a man is over you just because he didn't act while you were present, you're mistaken. Men often recognize love and attachment in hindsight. They revisit connections not when they're easy to access, but when they're gone. And when they do, their actions, thoughts, and longing can speak louder than any words ever could while the connection existed. Familiar emotional safety is hard for men to replace, and this is something that many people fail to understand. When a man connects with someone on a deep level, when he feels understood, valued, and emotionally supported, it creates a unique bond that is difficult to replicate. Men may date, meet new people, and even have surface-level fun, but the emotional depth they experienced with that particular person is rare. Emotional safety is not just about comfort, it's about trust, understanding, and a feeling that someone truly gets you. Once that is lost, it leaves a void that cannot be easily filled. Men are creatures of habit in many ways, and they attach to the consistency and reliability of someone who provides emotional safety. The jokes that made him laugh, the encouragement that lifted him, the patience that allowed him to be himself without judgment, these create a unique foundation. When that person is no longer present, men realize how irreplaceable that emotional support was. They may try to move on, distract themselves, or engage with others, but deep down, they are constantly comparing new interactions to what they lost. It's not about the people they meet after, it's about the bond they cannot replicate. Emotional safety also allows a man to be vulnerable in ways he cannot with just anyone. Men are often cautious with their hearts because society teaches them to hide their feelings. When a man finds someone who makes it safe to express doubt, fear, love, or weakness, it becomes a rare treasure. Losing that sense of security feels like losing a part of himself. That's why men may seem distant or hesitant at first. They're quietly mourning the loss of a connection where they could be fully open and authentic. Another reason emotional safety is hard to replace is that it fosters deep attachment. Men form habits around emotional connections. The way someone reacts to their moods, supports them in challenges, or understands their quirks creates a sense of familiarity and belonging. When that familiarity disappears, it's not just about missing the person, it's about missing the environment they created, the comfort they provided, and the sense of being fully understood. Men don't often articulate this, but internally, it's a profound loss. Finally, when men realize that the emotional safety they once had is gone, they often feel regret and longing. They may replay situations in their minds, thinking about what they could have done differently to preserve that bond. They may avoid rushing into new connections because they subconsciously know that no one else can replicate that level of trust and understanding. Familiar emotional safety leaves a lasting impression on a man's heart, and even when he appears to move on, it continues to influence his thoughts, choices, and feelings. So when a man seems to be pulling away, or when he acts like he's over you, remember this emotional safety is not something that can be replaced easily. Once a man has experienced it, losing it leaves a void that lingers, shaping his emotions and behaviors in ways he may not even express. The connection you shared isn't forgotten, it's remembered, valued, and often longed for in silence. Time reveals feelings men try to bury, and this is one of the most overlooked truths about male emotions. Men are often portrayed as simple creatures who either care or don't, but the reality is far more complex. From the moment a connection is lost, men go through layers of emotions that are rarely visible to the outside world. At first, there may be denial. They convince themselves that they are fine, that life goes on, and that what they lost is no longer important. They keep busy, distract themselves with work, hobbies, or even other relationships, all in an attempt to suppress what they feel. But no amount of distraction can completely erase emotions that were deeply felt. Over time, these feelings begin to surface slowly but inevitably, because emotions don't vanish just because a man hides them. Time allows a man to reflect without the immediate pressure of interaction. In the chaos of everyday life, he may have avoided facing his feelings because acknowledging them felt too heavy or vulnerable. But as days, weeks, or months pass, he starts to replay memories in his mind, analyzing conversations, actions, and even small gestures that once seemed insignificant. He begins to recognize patterns, moments of connection and the ways that person impacted his life, the longer he sits with these reflections, the more undeniable the truth becomes. He did care, he does care, and he may even regret how he handled things. This process doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, sometimes uncomfortable, and often invisible to the outside world. Men also use time to measure the depth of their emotions. When a man tries to bury feelings, he often does so out of fear, pride, or uncertainty. He convinces himself that he is over it because admitting otherwise would make him vulnerable. But over time, he notices that no distraction or substitution truly fills the void. He sees that other people, experiences, or distractions cannot replicate what he lost. Time acts as a mirror, showing him the difference between temporary comfort and lasting emotional impact. With each passing day, the weight of unspoken feelings grows until it becomes impossible to ignore. Another factor is clarity that comes with distance. Immediately after a connection ends, emotions are often clouded by confusion, anger, or frustration. Men may feel hurt, misunderstood, or defensive. They may justify detachment as a coping mechanism, telling themselves that walking away was the best choice. But time has a way of stripping away the noise. It allows men to reflect calmly without the immediate triggers of conflict or disappointment. In that stillness, they start to realize what they truly valued, what they miss, and what they wish they had handled differently. The clarity that time brings often reveals feelings that were hidden beneath layers of pride, ego, and fear. Time also exposes the mistakes men try to ignore. When a man buries feelings, he may avoid acknowledging regret or missed opportunities because facing them is uncomfortable. Over weeks or months, however, he begins to see his actions or inactions more objectively. He notices moments when he could have expressed care, acted differently, or appreciated the person more fully. That recognition intensifies feelings of longing and sometimes sparks a desire to reconnect. The emotions that were once suppressed begin to demand attention because they have not been resolved. Finally, time allows emotions to settle in a way that is honest and undeniable. Men may try to bury feelings behind pride, distraction, or even casual interactions with others, but deep down, the truth always remains. Over time, the layers of pretense and avoidance erode, leaving only the raw, authentic emotions that were always there. Men may not immediately act on these feelings, but their thoughts, reflections, and even subtle behaviors are shaped by what they tried to hide. Time doesn't just reveal buried emotions, it magnifies their importance and reminds